Hello, everyone. Welcome to another afternoon at MSK Innovations. I'm your host, TJ Halverson. Today, we have another great event lined up for you. Before I introduce our panel, before I introduce our panelists, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's event, Orthopedics This Week, leading source of orthopedic news and clinical insights for the last 20 years. Now, let's dive into today's presenters. We have three companies presenting: SpinePoint, Alleviate, and Brinter. On our panel, we have Nick Pachuta and Aaron Smith. Nick and Aaron, would you take a moment to provide a quick introduction?
Yep. Hey, everybody. I'm Nick Pachuta, based in Colorado, surgeon for 10 years, 25 years in industry, Arthrex, Synthes, J&J. Been lucky enough to be part of 5 exits. Now I lead Alleviate Capital, $100 million seed and A-round venture fund, and Precision Life Science Partners, a 35-person team that helps startups all around the world. Great to be a part of this.
Yeah. No, thanks for joining us, Nick. Aaron?
Yeah, hi, Aaron Smith with Vecteris MedTech, do consulting work. I've been working in medical technology now for over 30 years, mostly in orthopedics and musculoskeletal. I've been a part of companies large and small, have been a founder and a CEO of several startups, most recently with a company called Artelon that exited to Stryker last summer. Very familiar with the founder's journey and looking forward to hearing from our presenters today. Thanks.
Wonderful. All right, before we get started, MSK Innovations, just a quick note, is not a broker-dealer nor an investment advisor. This is for informational purposes only, not investment advice. Please conduct your own due diligence prior to making any investment. And with that, we will get started with Dr. Sekhan at SpinePoint.
Thank you, TJ. And thank you to Nick and Aaron for being on the panel today as well. And hopefully you can see that okay. My name is Lali Sekhan. I'm a practicing spine surgeon, and I'm representing SpinePoint. SpinePoint is producing medical devices used for spine surgery, and it really is devices designed by surgeons to solve problems that surgeons see. If we take the 1,000-foot view on the spine industry, it's about a $9 billion revenue in the US alone. And about half of that to maybe 2/3 of that is screws and cages, so a relatively big market. The average price of a cage used in spine surgery is anywhere from $1,000 to $6,000 per cage. We can produce our cages for about $125 for an initial device, which I'll show you. So the margins, once you get into the market, are fairly lucrative as well. This is where I sort of came from and tried to solve that. When we do a surgery, the patient leaves, the x-rays look great, but about 25% of those patients have a poor outcome. Some get additional surgeries, some wear out the next level, some of them, the implants sink into bone, some of them don't fuse. And that 1 in 4 patients not doing well after their index procedure is a problem that practicing spine surgeons see every day. And that's really what we're trying to solve at SpinePoint. I've been in practice 25 years, and I've done about 10,000 cases. And despite all the innovations we've made in implants, we're still getting a couple of different problems. On the left side, you can see a cage which has been put into a disc space after surgery, and you can see that cage is sinking into bone, and subsidence is fairly common. If you look at the cervical spine, it's about 10%. In the lumbar spine, it's up to about 30%. And some of these patients have poor outcomes. They end up getting more surgeries. On the right side, you can see a successful fusion at the bottom. And then what you're seeing is wear and tear above and below that fusion. We call that adjacent segment disease. And again, another problem that surgeons are plagued with where the index procedure goes well. So subsidence, adjacent segment disease, and not healing pseudoarthrosis are 3 problems that we saw at SpinePoint that we wanted to solve. On the right side is a mock-up of the endoskeleton. That's our patent, that's our IP. And you can see that Z shape gives it a spring, and that's the essence of our technology. On the left side, you can see the stiffness of different implants used in spine surgery. The units are gigapascals. On the top, you can see the typical titanium implant sits around 117 gigapascals. I use the Medtronic Titan cages. They're about 110 gigapascals. If you change materials, you can reduce it. Carbon fiber down to 20. Peak cages down to 4. When you look at cortical bone, it's around 17 gigapascals. Cancellous bone's around about 1/3 of a gigapascal. We managed to reduce the stiffness of our implants to 1 gigapascal, so very close to cancellous bone, using this proprietary Z shape as our endoskeleton. So is there data on reduced stiffness? And this is fairly well published, particularly in the basic science data. And there's good data that low stiffness reduces the stresses on adjacent levels after a successful fusion. It improves bone ingrowth, it reduces subsidence, and improves fusion rates. So the basic science data supporting this concept of low stiffness leading to less implant failures is fairly well established. And so we're not venturing into a field that we don't know there's a problem. What's been difficult is finding a solution for that problem. This is our portfolio. All of these are based upon that standard Z shape as the IP. The cage on the left is the first one that we're finishing off, and that's with the FDA right now. And that cage will get FDA approval, we're hoping, in about 3 to 4 months. Then we have 7 products that will follow, again, using that proprietary IP, so that everything from the lumbar spine, cervical spine, front, back, and side, we can cover with this intellectual property. Why now? Why are our devices relevant now? And a lot of that has been the material science improvements. We've gone from solid titanium. Had PEEK before. The porous titanium really are giving us new advantages that we didn't have before. So I think number one is the development of the material science. The material science has improved. The second thing that's happened is our biomechanical understanding has improved. And stiffness is something that we really didn't have an appreciation for, didn't really understand the role that it plays in spine surgery. And we're starting to understand stiffness a little bit more. So the timing of these two things, and improvement of our understanding and improvement of material sciences, has really helped us develop this product. We're going to get to market in 2026, and it'll either be licensing or distribution, and we're open to both. We are talking to some of the larger companies at the moment, and there is interest. We have a fairly experienced board. There's about 150 years of spine experience on our board, and all of these individuals have worked with different companies in the spine industry as well. These are our milestones. So we have 3 patents published. Our IP is protected. The last one was published last year, so we've got a good 15 years ahead of us. The first device, as I said, is with the FDA now. They're fairly prescriptive in terms of what they want for cervical cages, so we're fairly confident we'll get approval. So we've prototyped and tested all of our devices. The final testing on the other 7 hasn't been done yet. The designs are frozen. The instruments are created, our team's in place, and we're waiting for an FDA approval on our first device. This is sort of our pathway towards manufacturing. So we've already identified who's going to manufacture for us. We can produce those cages at volume for about $120 a unit, and that's our first cage. We can get packaging and sterilization done for about another $30, and that's where that $150 per cage, ready, packaged in Tyvek pouches, labeled, ready for implantation is ready. The instrumentation is done. There's a CPT code, as you may know, for implantation of cages. So the pathway towards commercialization has been clarified at least a little bit. We have different financial projections, but we're expecting $15 million revenue by year 3, 33 revenue by year 5, assuming we've got all 7 products, all 8 products in the market at that stage. So what do we want? Well, we're looking for $5 million, and that $5 million will do a couple of things. Number one, it commercializes the cage once we've got FDA approval. And the second thing is it'll allow us to finish off the other 7 products, or as many of those as we can. It gets us into the market. We've got our manufacturing pathway sorted out, but we need employees to handle the logistics of looking after that workflow as well. So we're ready to go to market. We have 7 products that are IP protected, ready for that as well. And as soon as we get FDA approval, our products can enter the market. Thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Sekhan.
You're welcome.
I'll open it up to Nick and Aaron for some questions, and might throw in a few from the chat.
Yeah, sure. No, yeah, great job.
Thanks.
Great to see you again, Lolly. Just maybe I'll start with a couple technical questions. They might be simple, but when you talk about stiffness, what contributes more to adjacent segment disease, the stiffness of the cage or the stiffness of the total construct?
It's probably the stiffness of the total construct. So if you put a plate on the front of it, it's going to override the stiffness of the cage. And I think adjacent segment disease is multiple things. It's genetics, It's
Mhm.
where we place our screws. But if you put a plate on the front of it, I think that stiffness of the plate will override the stiffness of the cage. If you use a standalone, and one of our devices is a standalone with screws through the flanges in the cage, then you still have the stiffness of the cage, and you've got fixation as well. So I think the answer is depending on whether you use supplemental fixation or not.
Yeah, what I was getting at is it'll be good down the road to be able to really put some data to how much the stiffness of the cage contributes to adjacent segment disease. Obviously it does. What I worry about is, is the value proposition of just changing the stiffness of the cage, is that going to be enough to make an impact? And I'm sure you have really good data to show it's promising. It'll be interesting down the road in the clinic to see how much impact that really has.
Yes.
But and I'll just throw one other technical question in. How much testing have you done for the durability of those hinges, since there's basically a moving part on that interbody?
So most of the testing has been on the static cage so far, and the flange part, we've just done preliminary testing. So it still needs to be done on the standalone with the little hinges on it. And you're 100% right. The durability of that is yet to be established. But there are precedent cages out there that have those flanges. So hopefully we can follow that.
Okay.
So, Dr. Sekon, are you the indications you're pursuing with FDA? Would they permit use of these cages as both a standalone and with instrumentation?
Yeah, initially this is going to be with instrumentation, so it's a static cage. The 7 products that come behind it, there are 2 standalone versions. There's a zero profile version, and there's a flange version as well. And there'll be a locking plate version as well. So initial cage, just static, need a plate, but the ones that follow will be standalone versions.
Got it. And, I think stiffness has been a part of the discussion for these devices for quite a while, and there's a whole range of stiffnesses, as you mentioned. I'm just curious how you arrived at the idea of shooting for a stiffness that was substantially lower than cortical bone, as opposed to sort of equivalent to cortical bone.
I think it's a good question. And the answer is we tried to just get as low as we could. The challenge is we went through 12 different iterations of devices because we would fail FDA testing otherwise. So the sweet spot was passing the static and dynamic torture tests that the FDA has and still bringing that stiffness down. The question you have is valid, is what stiffness is the correct stiffness? I don't know. And we just tried to bring it as low as we could, figuring that if we're in that range between cancellous bone and cortical bone, at least subsidence, we may reduce them there as well. But I don't know what the right stiffness is going to be.
Great. And then I just had a business question, Nick. You might have one or two more as well. But I just think when you look at the market for spine cages right now, it's a fairly crowded marketplace. There's a lot of devices out there. That market is pretty consolidated with some kind of major incumbents.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious about the go-to-market strategy. I mean, you mentioned licensing or distribution, but how do you ultimately plan to take this out to the market and try and get your piece of the pie?
We are talking to major players who are interested, but ultimately, if we start with the cervical cage, surgery centers are an easy target. That way you avoid the GPOs, talking to distributors as well. So surgery centers are a very soft target because the surgeons are the ones that make the decision in there. And cervical fusions are recognized in surgery centers. So I think there's a couple of different pathways. Distributorship is one, surgery centers is two, and then trying to partner with a bigger company.
Yeah, I kind of echoed where I was going to go next, in that, you got FDA, you showed FDA and potentially in 2025. Unfortunately in orthopedics and spine, 92% of exits occur after you've generated revenue and, commercial momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So given that fact, I know you showed, licensing and distribution, et cetera. I think, a quick question, do you have a commercial leader? And if you don't, sort of what's the plan to put that infrastructure in place? Because I guess my guess is there's a high likelihood you're going to have to.
Yeah, we don't yet. So I think that's a piece that's missing.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a couple questions from the chat. How much money has been invested to date, and what are the terms for this $5 million that you're raising?
$2 million has been invested to date to bring it to speed. And The terms are open yet. I mean, that's a negotiation point. So our goal is to get these cages into the market.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever terms we get, we'll look at them and go from there. So we know what the number is, but in terms of the specific details of the terms, that's open to negotiation.
Got it. And is this a seed or a Series A?
It's sort of halfway in between, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're 2 million in. So, but we haven't sought funding before now. So we've kept it fairly clean.
Got it. Got it. Another question I had was around, and it's combined to what Nick is talking about with commercialization, is with the value analysis committees and your approach to the surgery center market. That makes sense, but are you going to be compiling data so that you can then go to some of those larger hospital institutions and provide that value proposition?
Yeah, I mean, we've already got surgeons that are interested, and we'd collect the data with them. So the surgeon response has been phenomenal. Once we put the cage in their hand, it's when can I have this? And so the surgeons are driving this as much as anything else.
Yeah. Do you know how the stiffness of these products compare to what Aurora's been doing with their DEXA matched cages?
It's probably similar. There are a couple of others that are out there, and I think they're all in that bandwidth. But that sort of data is hard to get a hold of as well to actually look at those numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great.
Well, Ken, if I could ask one more, when you look at taking the products out to market, is it sort of a traditional spine instrumentation model where you have your implants, but then you also have instrument sets with trials and insertion devices and all that?
Yeah, and we've been pretty clever in terms of we looked at what the market is out there, and there are fairly standard sizes now out there. So most cages are 0 degrees, 7, 10, 15. We covered the sizes in terms of trialing. So the reality is, for example, if we partner with someone, we may be actually able to substitute into their current trays and just put an inserter in and still use the current trays that are out there. So we've left it adaptable so that hopefully we don't have to create X number of sets on top of it.
Great.
Hey, TJ, I see that Chris is on.
Chris is on. Wonderful to have you, Mr. Lyons. You're on mute, but if you have any questions for Dr. Sakon, we'll let you take the last question.
Oh, looks like he's having some audio.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, since we have a second, and Chris is working on it. As Aaron said, there's a lot of interbody activity in the marketplace, a lot of products, a lot of people developing things.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to say, the one aspect that you have that's going to make you the winner, what is the amazing thing that you can do that no one else can do that's going to enable you to sort of leapfrog some of these technologies?
I think this is surgeon driven. Surgeons want low stiffness cages, and what is out there, I don't think is giving the surgeons what they want. So the surgeons are the ones that are asking for this device, and they see a need for it.
I was just going to say, Dr. Sakon, it's good to see you again.
See you,
I'm sorry I was not able to participate in the review, but I like the tech. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Chris.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Sakon. We're going to move on to our next presentation here with Elaine at Alleviate Therapy. Hey everyone, TJ Halverson here. Did you know that a mediocre hire can cost your MSK company over $1 million? While other recruiters coach candidates to say what you want to hear, we find leaders that actually deliver. The DeAngelis Group has over 25 years of transparent executive search. So de-risk your next hire by contacting us at orthospinesearch.com. Now back to the pitch.
All right, thank you. As TJ mentioned, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. As TJ mentioned, my name is Alain Tranche-Montagne. You don't have to repeat it. AT will do just fine since we're in the TJs and company. I joined Alleviate in March, and I'll be taking you through the next few minutes with an overview of the company. If all of you think about it for a second, how many of you either have or know someone who has suffered from a soft tissue injury, MSK soft tissue injury? If you look at the data, there's up to 50 million people in this country right now suffering from a tendonitis or tendinosis of some sort. 1 in 3 orthopedic calls is for the same soft tissue tendinopathy of any kind. So that there's an amount of people out there suffering and who, generally speaking, don't find good resolution. Some people do, most people don't. So what we're looking for today is $1.9 million to create a scalable physician channel to supplement where the company started in 2022 with a direct-to-consumer market where we have actually accumulated experience with more than 30,000 patients. So why do these people not progress? If I were to boil it down to its simplest explanation, is most people wait too long to seek care. They dismiss the severity of the problem. And so by the time they actually look for a solution, whether it be online or friends or physicians, they've already gone chronic. And at that point in time, the deck starts to stack against them. It's the complexity of the resolution, which needs to be tailored to the individual patient. It's the time it takes to get through the process, right? The data shows that, it's easily measured in months or years. And most people lose their motivation in the process. And they also end up spending, on average, $2,200 a year for, if you do simple math, people will generally be considered tendinopathic for about 5 years as a general rule. So what we've done is we've looked at all the evidence and focused on predominantly the IESTM and physical therapy combination, which recently you published on, and developed a complete solution that both protects and treats the patients, but also goes through the strengthening and stretching exercises. What's interesting is that the app that guides the use of the devices also takes into account the patient's situation to adapt the care to the needs of the patient, which is one of the big problems in recovery. That and people falling off the cart because they're just not compliant with, say, physical therapy guidelines. So what we see today, and we looked at our last 884 patients data, is if they're going to do 3 days a week, 10 minutes a day, following the protocol, for a $200 all-in investment, they'll generally see about 20% improvement in the first week and up to 70% at 6 weeks, significantly favorable results. The major impact of this is motivation. We see people, cheerful about their progress, so they stick with the program until they feel that they've achieved whatever objectives they set for themselves. 85% of our patients actually report successful outcomes. What's interesting also, and this is rather unusual, that the app that guides the protocol and walks the patient through on a daily basis also is basically an engine for real world evidence. So we collect patient reported outcomes and we use this. The data I'm quoting is obviously selected from the app. And so we are looking to expand that aspect as well as obviously the joints that we're going to treat, because we only cover 4 joints presently. So that's in a nutshell where we've been. Financially speaking, when the organization started, they wanted to demonstrate adoption. They wanted to understand patient adoption, patient's response. So they spent a lot of effort trying to build through the DTC channel the demand for the product. They were successful, but there was a major cost to it, and that being financial losses. So in 2024, they switched gears and started to focus on efficiency, which we're carrying through at this point in time. But the idea now is to build this physician channel that acts synergistically with a DTC. In other words, if patients are asking for advice from physicians by naming the product, physicians will tend to pay attention to it. But if physicians are recommending the product, then the same happens. The patients will actually listen to their physicians. And that's the synergy that will allow us to scale more efficiently. So as mentioned earlier, we've got 30,000 patients behind us. Actually, it's a growing number, so it's north of that now. And what we are trying to do now is use the $1.9 million to build a scalable physician model And to answer a question that came up earlier, yeah, we do need a commercial lead. We do need a number of things: physician onboarding, reimbursement, regulatory, HIPAA compliance, cybersecurity. You guys all know it. This is the standard stuff that any company is going to face. And we've established a set of priorities to go through a number of specialties. Today, we're focused heavily on the podiatry because that was the seminal starting point in terms of treating the plantar fascia. But we've now expanded into the elbow, the knee, and so on. So that's what I have for you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Elaine. We'll open it up for some questions.
I'll go ahead and go. So is the treatment, did I read it right? The treatment is a $200 cost?
Correct.
Okay.
Patient cost. It's an average because different, the elbow is going to be slightly different than the knee.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've seen great patient motivation, right? As you referred to. How do you feel like that will, does your revenue model change? Let me put it this way. When you get this into the hands of the physicians as the ones that are potentially driving greater awareness of the technology?
So it's a good question. Here's how we've built the commercial model with a physician. We're piloting it right now. So in fact, I was exchanging with one of the docs this morning. So patient shows up in the physician's office. Physician says, okay, I want to put you on conservative care, but this is what I'd like you to focus on. Gets to the exit, scans the QR code specific to the physician. That takes them to our site, but dedicated to that physician. Physician invoices the patient. We ship the product to the patient. They get home, they get the product. And in the meantime, we invoice the physician who's already made money. There's no inventory involved. It's all digital.
Okay.
So it's a source of revenue, if you will.
Right.
So you mentioned that, you started as direct to consumer. Are you going in the direction of a regulated product, like through the FDA?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what kind of claim are you going to go after with that?
So first of all, at start, it's a class 1 medical device. It's massaging and protection, right? The bracing. So they're pretty standard claims. They're pretty standard categories of product. In fact, there's one question out there from one of our regulatory advisors, which is, do you really need the device on the massager side? On the bracing side, yes, that's a well-defined category. The other side is not so clear. So we need to work through that. And that's what part of the raise is for.
Okay, because kind of where I was going, the soft tissue issues and all sorts of, corners of the body, they're typically some combination of mechanical and issues and biologic issues, blood flow being one of the big ones. I guess of all the different soft tissue applications of the, non-invasive sort of therapy type products, I guess which types of issues actually respond the best to therapy? And you said you've used this in 30,000 patients. Are there specific indications that respond better than others?
So of the 4 applications we've got so far, so PTTD, runner's knee, plantar fascia, and tennis elbow, so lateral epicondylitis, all 4 have, generally speaking, the same outcomes. So they're equally, same general field. And we've got one of the guys at the Cleveland Clinic actually studied the data and came back with conclusions. And they're same statistical significance and similar improvements over time. So you saw no difference between the 4 groups.
Do you have any intention of, doing any sort of clinical trial to show efficacy versus standard of care, or efficacy, if you had a sham control or something? Any intention to generate some sort of objective clinical data?
Yes, absolutely. So we're starting with the evidence we generate with our own app. Some physicians want to use it, so we're actually building a module for physicians to actually conduct research through the app, so prospective nature. But then, yes, there's a number of avenues, and there's not really a fully defined standard of care in chronic tendinopathy. Rice is about the only component that's considered standard. So we were not. The intent is not to compare it against rice, because that's usually, it will be the standard first step. We expect patients who fail rice to then be an option.
Okay.
So.
Who do you see, as you think about this, Elaine, who do you see as the exit partner? Who do you see as the company that eventually goes, oh my gosh, we've got to have this, and it's going to change so much for us?
Okay, so it's a great question that I've been working on. And so I'll tell you what I've looked at so far and what steps we're taking. So first of all, I've broke the potential exits on 3 strategic fronts. There are the device manufacturers, and think of them like a DJO and company.
Mm-hmm.
There are the retail-oriented players like the Dr. Scholl's that have a pitch into the physician space, right? And I actually talked to the ex-CEO of the company, and he agrees with the model, if you will. And for both of these organizations, what we bring is the evidence building capability. You know, they have braces, they don't have treatment. They for DJO, right. And it's the opposite for Dr. Scholl's. The third group is actually an interesting one. I'm actually talking to a company called Plethi right now. But they're like the Hinge, Hinge is the best known. They're an app-based only physical therapy. And the evidence shows that physical therapy is insufficient to get the resolution you want. You know, that's why ASTM became part of the equation for us. But it's also the problem from physical therapy is what do you do with a patient when they get home? You know, if they're not going to do their therapy, then they're coming back to the doc 6 weeks later and there's been no progress. So those 3 need additional exploration. I'm just getting into that right now. I spoke to one orthopedic player 2 weeks ago, and they're actually interested in doing just what I said, like integrate our bracing system and our app into, it's a plates and screw play in the wrist. So again, very early days, but it's a great question.
Yeah. No, I know. It's because it is a technology that has potentially, to your point, 3 different landing platforms.
Yeah.
And
it's actually
so.
And on the app side, actually, there's a company that reached out to us last week, 2 weeks ago, also. So again, very early days. We're trying to understand where they see the value. We think we know, but there's a difference between us thinking and them knowing. So we're working through that. Yeah.
Thanks for answering.
Not a problem. My pleasure.
So, Elaine, I'm still trying to get my head around the commercial model. So, basically, it's not a physician resale model. You know, they're not buying your devices and selling them to patients. So, basically, patients come through the physician's office. They have some kind of promotional materials they provide to the patient. You work directly with the patient for payment, invoicing, and everything, and then you pay a referral fee back to the physician, or how do the mechanics of that actually work?
The physician actually sells the device to, so let me back up. When I joined in March, what they were doing was selling inventory to physicians. Now, if you're a physician, that's not what you want to do. You don't want to carry stock. You don't want to have to figure out, do I need small, medium, large, whatever that is. And I saw this as a major complaint of the physician. So we eliminated the inventory. We keep the inventory. Think of it like Amazon, if you will. You go on Amazon, you order something, you're paying at that point in time. Doesn't matter who you're paying. The product gets shipped to you. Doesn't matter who's shipping it to you. It could be Amazon, it could be the vendor. This is exactly the model we have. We're doing the shipping. The physician is invoicing the patient, and that's the end as far as the patient's concerned. A couple of weeks later, we invoice the physician, just as if they had the inventory, except they didn't tie capital and they didn't have to worry about inventories.
Got it. Okay. So it is a physician resale model. You're just also handling the fulfillment logistics of the physical goods. Okay.
Yeah.
So what, just in turn, if your physicians are basically your sales force, what, if I can be so crude, what's in it for them? What's the actual markup to them? If they're seeing 50, 60 patients coming through clinic every day on a clinic day, how do they get value out of working that product, and does the product on the back end kind of integrate back to their care continuum where they're getting feedback on the patient's compliance? Are they able to log in and see how often they've used it? Tell me how that fits the overall scheme.
Yeah, so let's break this down into a couple of components. First of all, on the resale, right, their ability to earn 40 to 50 gross margin points for something they didn't pay for, they don't carry. Secondly, we handle part of the education. The physician will make the recommendation, and yes, they have posters and material we give them for the patient, but they're also shortcutting their time spent with the patient, because they say, if you try this, I think it'll work for you, scan, and then we take it from there. We provide any answers that the patient's looking for. And the third component is that the app, we're developing tweaks to the app to provide what you're talking about. So before, because it was only a DTC, physician wasn't part of the equation. Now the physician will have the ability, and I'll give you the most recent embodiment based on their last feedback we got. But physician says, I don't really want to have my staff go and look at where the patient is, but I do have a follow-up visit at 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whichever works for them. At that point in time, I wanted the patient to bring their app and to show me a screenshot of, essentially a snapshot of their history. How often are they using it? What are they doing? What's their pain score? What's their function score? Are they achieving their objectives? And then have the ability to get this data exported into the EMR. So that's, if you will, simplifying part of the documentation along the way.
Got it.
So
Okay.
maybe a follow-up for that. So what is the data you had? You had 30,000 people use this. What's the typical duration of use and the compliance of people that are using it?
I don't know the formal answer to the compliance, because there's different ways to skin the cat, right? How many people are using the app and versus how many people are actually sticking with it? Because there are some people that will use it for a few weeks, a couple of weeks, and then stop using it. I was one of those. I was actually a patient before I was a customer, the CEO. And once you get the rhythm and the exercise, and especially if you like I reached level 6, which is the most difficult level, in about 2 weeks on the elbow. I was actually a patient for the knee and the elbow. Once I got there, I was like, okay, I know the drill, and I would only use it once in a blue moon. So if you look at my data for the first 4 or 5 weeks, it's chock full of data. It's 2-3 points a week. And then afterwards, it's sporadic, like if I did something wrong or whatever. And then afterwards, I trailed off. When I did the knee, I did the same thing, but it was much shorter lift because I did it after, so I knew exactly what I was, intending to do. So we've made tweaks now to this. Like if the app detects you're not using it for 3 days, it pings you to find out why. Mm-hmm. If your answer is because I feel good, well, problem solved. If the answer is, well, it's just I didn't feel like it, I know the drill and all that stuff, we also record that so there can be a way to, if you will, extract that data out of a data run in terms of looking at progress. So it's a valid point. At the end of the day, if the patient shows back to the physician's office 6 weeks out and says, this is working fantastic, I've never had such good results, I think we're on the game.
Have you ever looked at that pool of patients that have already been using it and asked a net promoter score? Like how often would they actually recommend it to somebody else?
This is a great idea. I'm going to steal it from you. But what I did is I reached out to a bunch of patients and I interviewed them. We sent them a little questionnaire to frame it up for me. And then I actually interviewed. We were only 3 people. I fired everybody else when I joined because we were losing money. So, and so I interviewed a dozen patients and went down that path. And yeah, everybody was like, ecstatic. So it was positive.
Yeah, I would just say if you did that objectively and you got thousands of these people to say, look, 85% would recommend this to somebody else, that goes even farther than, like the subjective thing you just did, which is great to learn. But boy, with all those, to take advantage of that 30,000 people that have already used it, there's got to be a way to tap into that to build the momentum as you build up clinical data as well.
Yeah, we get some also online because of the DTC aspect. So some people will come back online and we had a postman actually tell us that it's the first time he's able to do his run without pain. So those are helpful. And we got a couple of Olympic athletes that have posted videos online. So you're right. I mean, it's an opportunity we haven't tapped yet.
Well, there are very few products, that have 30,000 people that have used it that you can maybe even get to. So, there might be a way to use that as a value driver for you as you're building your regulated product pathway and the surgeon pathway.
Yeah, valid point.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, Elaine. Great presentation. Good Q&A. With that, we'll move on to Tom at Brinter. Tom, go ahead and share your deck here and we'll get started. Just loading it up. Let's see.
Enable camera coming in.
Here we go.
One second. Why am I not seeing my presentation here in the share screen? One second. Share screen. Window. There we go. Apologies for that. Can you see my screen?
We got it.
Awesome. All right. I'm here to talk to you about Brinter and our 3D bioprinted tissue implants. A little bit about the background of the company. So I'm myself a serial entrepreneur, originally from Finland, and been doing technology companies since 2008. And mid 2010s, I had my first exit and turned into an investor. So the story continues to 2018, where my really good friend in Finland, who used to design car manufacturing plans for Audi and Volkswagen, approached me with an idea of building a 3D bioprinter. And knowing how great scientist Tommy was, I invested immediately. And my inspiration was that we could utilize our 3D bioprinter with some of these science fiction movies that are dearly loved to me, of printing something that's never been seen before, tendons and ligaments, for example. So 2020, we went to Germany and to launch our 3D bioprinter, and immediately realizing that our technology was far beyond anything available in the markets. And 2022, I became free from my previous company after exit. I became a CEO. I was already here in the United States, and I brought the company here, did the whole Delaware Corp flip, and found us a home at Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine, North Carolina, where our implant development is happening. So today we are 3D bioprinting the world's first tissue implants that are now coming commercial in less than 2 years. Why we matter in healthcare? Tissue still heals slow, as we are aware, 9 to 12 months for tendon healing. Expensive repairs costing US taxpayers quite a lot. And competitors' products, even the regenerative products, are still overpriced, which are causing these products not to be available for a vast majority of injuries. And unmet need, for example.
Need to interrupt, but we lost your presentation.
Oh, really? That's sad. How far did you already lost it?
Just 30 seconds ago.
Oh, somewhere here?
Perfect.
Yeah. So, yes, tissue heals slow, 9 to 12 months for tendon healing, expensive repairs, as I mentioned, and overpriced competitors' products that cause not to become available for vast majority, and unmet needs, 45% of fail rate, as we know, rotator cuff repairs, for example. So what we're building here at Brinter, the next evolution of these implants, which is additive manufactured with our 3D bioprinters. What we can now design is fully custom biological layers that offer the regenerative features, and custom synthetic layers that offer the load sharing, strength, and faster recovery. With our 3D bioprinters, we can also price our implants right, so we can open the untapped market of ASCs all around the country. And fast, easy arthroscopic delivery with our device is the design for implants to be implanted. So we're starting with $4 billion soft tissue market. Tendon repairs is the main category. Rotator cuff being a primary with 500,000 surgeries per year. Moving to additional indications to Achilles Tendon and ACL eventually, and $130 million obtainable market, service of obtainable market, 3 years post-commercialization with very high margins. So a little bit about the rotator cuff implant competition. Regenerative first to market, BioPrinted, liked by surgeons with good features right now, and then comes to us. There's also newcomers like Artelons, but we don't really put them in the same category because we don't consider them as engineered as the three of us here in the top list. So if you look at the construct, the regenerative, there's only collagen layers in it, collagen materials. So there's no synthetic materials at all. And BioPrinted is a hybrid textile, electrospun designed with the PLLA and collagen materials, and then us using the similar materials as the BioPrinted, as they do have great features that we want to mimic with our product. The strength is something that is very desirable for surgeons, especially for rotator cuff repairs. Regenerative doesn't really carry much. BioPrinted, which has a pretty good 130 Newton average strength features for 10,000 sutures, and we aim to be somewhere in the same range with the different designs of our implant that the data is right now coming out quite fast with our animal studies ongoing. The tear resistance, same thing. BioPrinted may not be that good as we estimate ourselves to be. So this is also something that a very unique design of our implant allows us to get. And then the total resorption time, 6 months for regenerative. BioPrinted somewhere in the 2-year range. We aim to be less than that 2 years range, and Artelon quite far in 4 years. And this is something that is very important here, is the cost per unit. These are estimates. There's not a lot of open data, of course, available, but we can find some data available. The cost per unit is somewhere in $3,000 range, where we can actually get to quite a lot less. That opens up the markets for us. So how we can do it is with our 3D bioprinted implants, with our device that we own IPs for it. So we print these with the 2 different tools, composites and materials, then packaging it all in our device, gamma radiation to ASCs and hospitals with quite a long 12-month shelf life. We will manufacture our implants in our own facilities on the East Coast and deliver them to the ASCs and hospital networks all across the country. And we can take the implant lead time with our own manufacturing down from weeks to days. We have 3 IP sections. 3D bioprinter is the first one that started originally. Implant design is what we work right now, and the manufacturing IP is allowing us also to create like a fortress around our implant designs. 4 approved, currently 5 pending. So the accelerated R&D for our first implant, we selected the class 2 510K predicates based on that as well, which means that we don't need any human trials, and like I mentioned, commercial in 2027. We've been working together with the top KOLs, orthopedic surgeons, Randall Wickline, Celine Parek, for example, Alan Deutsch, Brian Patel, Sharif Bishai, and Matthew Jenkins. They've been very helpful for us, giving us the guide how to make the first possible product for markets. And again, I'm repeating this, that if our product can be priced right, we can dominate the markets. And that's one of the key features in the end for the first product. So indication, bioinductive augmented implant for soft tissue reinforcements with support healing and provide strengths. 510K, first 2 years, material printability studies, bench test feasibility studies. This year, we're now have moved to animal degradation studies and finally design freeze and QSUB meeting happening before the end of the year. Next year, dedicated for ISO 10993s, final large animal studies in packaging and sterilization, and FDA submissions currently scheduled for 2027 with sales and marketing after that. R&D budget total is remaining is 1.75 to 2.25. It doesn't include any sales or marketing. Too much to talk about sales milestones, but I always like to give at least an idea. So for rotator cuff repairs, we target ASCs with our own sales and regional independent distributors, targeting only $3 million second year post-revenue, with potential strategic opportunities with large medtech. Years 3 to 5, we're expanding indications, as I mentioned, and to remaining ASCs and adding hospital systems with group purchasing organizations, large independent distributors, and then the hockey stick starts there. And here's a couple of the partners, of course, for the GPOs. A little bit about the team. As I mentioned, I've had a couple of already exits. I'm experienced in building companies and finding the right kind of teams to build the successful stories. Brought in Theo, director of operations, Omnicom, being managing hundreds of millions of dollar budgets for multiple different companies, including Apple and multiple pharmaceutical companies as well. Tommy Calpio, he's the scientist I mentioned before, the inventor of 3D bioprinters. Matthew Bravold, he's been working on our science operations. And Shailen Lucas is the director of R&D, building medtech products and patents. And we're just about to announce our next big hire, actually in a couple of weeks, that will be working towards the final regulatory approaches for us. Just to give you a little bit idea, we're not only here doing the orthopedics, even though that will be the main way for us to get the revenue and commercialization, but aesthetics, breast reconstruction, we already have products, versions of our current implant for that. Personalization, adding stem cells as well, engineering them for every patient, cartilage tissues, meniscus repairs, nasal, spinal disc repairs. And even though it's science fiction today, but I joined and I've invested in this company originally to keep on going and eventually even potentially making organs, even though, like I said, science fiction still today. We're raised to date 1.5 million pre-seed in 21, 2 million seed last year, and $5 million non-dilutive. It's a bit more actually, the grant funding. But we have to close actually our notes by the end of the year. So we're doing a price bridge round, $1 million. We'll open it next Friday, and we're targeting to close by the end of the year. Target with this funding and existing already funds we have is to get all the way to third phase of all the fives. And at that point, with all the data we already have, we should be good to go for the A round, which will be targeted for final stages of our commercialization and then already marketing and sales. That's it. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Nick, Aaron, you may have some interesting questions here with your background.
Well, I was going to say, you kind of welcome to the lion's den here a little bit. You've got, past CEO of Artelon. I was on the board of BioRes, and years ago used to also market Artelon. So, kudos to you for jumping into this. I don't know, Aaron, you want to go first? You want me?
Yeah, no, it's great. First of all, nice job, Tom. I do love to see new technology coming into the space. I think there's
I can't hear
a lot of room
right
to
now.
run.
There's a question coming.
Yeah, are you guys
Aaron,
able to hear me okay?
I can hear you.
I've got you.
Tom, are you able to hear me? Doesn't look like you can.
Yeah.
Chris, Nick, you guys
I'm
want
still
to?
not hearing if the.
Yeah.
You guys do that.
Tom, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Nick.
Okay, I'll throw a question in while you're working on it, Aaron. So there's rotator cuff is a pretty busy space already commercially, and there's a lot of folks in development. You mentioned that it's 3D printed. What I didn't get was why is the construct that you're working on going to be significantly better than everything else that's out there? What is the secret sauce of the way you're constructing this that's going to make it a clinical winner?
A great question, and I wish I could show you the final design of the implant that we work with our KOLs. The beauty with the 3D bioprinting is actually the digitalization of all the designs. So we can design pixel by pixel however we want the implant to be. Right? Well, now we can focus on the areas that haven't been served well, the strength features, the suture retention. So all these have been going to a vigorous different versions so that we can get the exact features out of the implant that, for example, KOLs want. So we're not only building, of course, like a cheaper implant here with them able to design it and implement our R&D immediately to the final product and commercialize, manufacture it for patients, but we can keep fine tuning it all the time and then just pushing out new kind of versions of our implant for different requirements. So
you said you were going to go into some sheep studies. When are you going to do your pivotal sheep study on this?
The pivotal sheep study is starting first quarter 26.
Right. And that $1 million
We're a
is
little
gonna,
bit late, but,
is that $1 million going to get you all the way through that?
nope. That's why the A round there is included, but we already have some funds still, and we got a good
Okay.
grant also that we're running.
Okay, yeah, because animal studies are getting more expensive.
No,
as
they're like,
every
yeah, we have
minute
like
goes by.
700. We have a
Okay.
$750,000 invoice for that waiting.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Hey, Tom, are you able to hear me now? Tom, this is Aaron. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Great. Yeah, I just I wanted to make sure I understood the slides. So you're talking about your go-to-market
I
with the
still
product.
unfortunately can't hear.
Okay, that's strange. TJ, are you able to hear me? Okay.
I think Aaron might be.
Aaron, ask your question, and I'll just restate it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the actual time to market for the product. It looks like it's 2027. You know, how much cash will be raised at launch of the product at that point? And then, I was going to kind of home in on the sales plan too. You was talking about $600 ASPs and 60 million in revenue in the out years. How do you plan to turn that many units as you build the revenue plan?
Well, let's take those one at a time. I'm old and my memory is slipping. So Tom, your time, Aaron was bringing up, your time to market is about 2027. You had a question of how much, total capital do you think is going to be invested by the time you're ready for launch?
That's a good question. And the ask slide, typically I have it that my A round I estimate to be $7.5 million. So that would be for the final stages and the commercialization and sales for the first year to 2 years, depending on the size of the market penetration.
So give or take, you're going to be about 12 to 15 million in by the time you launch. Is that about right?
Yes, all total from the beginning, correct.
Okay. And then Aaron, what was your sales question?
Yeah, it's just about the revenue build. I mean, are they really targeting a $600 ASP? Because you have to move a lot of units for $600 implants to build significant revenue.
Yeah, Tom, the question really is, going with that $600 ASP, which feels low versus competition, are you prepared, to move that many units to be able to, be relevant, I guess?
Yes, we can print 4 implants at the same time from our printing bed, which means that it takes roughly 20 to 30 minutes to print 1 implant. So 24 hours, we can keep this running. So yes, sir, we're aimed to, and we own the technology of our 3D bioprinters. We already contract manufacture our 3D bioprinters, so we can just fill a warehouse with this like manufacturing purposes with the ISO 5 facilities. But
It's just, I'll ask maybe a stupid question. If your product you feel is going to be better than everybody else's, why aren't you charging more?
That remains to be seen. That we got the price point from our KOLs that 600 would be for ASCs, the kind of number that they would just keep using it for as many rotator cuff repairs they could. And but like you said, I don't want to be, of course, like cannibalizing my own business markets. So
Right.
That remains to be seen.
Yeah, you want to really look at your pricing, hospital and surgery center, and I would say asking physicians is one data point. I think you probably want to put a little more robust energy into that pricing sensitivity study that you do. Chris, do you have some questions?
I would think too that it would be important to make sure that you're getting every dollar out of this, because you can always come down.
Yeah, that sound wasn't great, but I think where he was going, TJ, was you want to be careful with that pricing because it sounds like you're going a little thin on the pricing. You can always go higher and discount your way down, but if you start low, there's like no way to go up.
Exactly.
Chris, that's where you're going, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's why we're going to be working with the KOLs from the ASCs who manage their unit economics there to finalize the product pricing. We have a lot of room in our margin, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, I guess I would just give them advice. I'd get, now that you have time, I'd get a couple quotes from professional reimbursement houses to go out and do some work for you in the hospital and the surgery center and see, based on your target product profile and how you think it's going to perform, I'd get, what the high end is of hospital-owned surgery center and privately held surgery center pricing, and try to maximize that ceiling, and then capture your clinical and economic data along the way to back up that pricing and the value proposition with it. I think right now you're starting low. I think Chris and Aaron would probably agree. I would put as much emphasis in generating data and getting the maximum pricing you can. That's also going to make raising money a whole lot easier.
100%. I agree on that, and that's what we're going to be working. Unit economics that's my actually life field. I'm an MBA, so
Okay, good.
That's my field. Thank you.
Maybe just one
Anyone
last
here
part.
having an experience and advisorship, I'm happy to talk more.
Yeah, if Tom can't hear me, just ask, is the rotator cuff product going to be a procedure kit with instruments or fixation devices?
Someone
or is it
talking?
just
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, I was getting, that was on my list as well, Aaron. So, hey, Tom, are you going to package this in with a fixation kit, or is it going to be a standalone patch?
Correct. And I actually, yes, we are going to be actually designing our own delivery tool for this as well.
So you're going to have a delivery tool or a fixation kit or both?
Delivery tool, I believe at least. Fixation tool, quite likely as well. But that's something that we're still going to work with our third partner that is going to be designing for it. We won't do it in-house.
Well, before you have, I'll jump in for Aaron. Before you design it, you want to make sure that what is the final product that's going to win? Is it, do you need not only 1 or 2 different versions of the patch? Do you need a fixation kit? Do you need a cannula? Do you need a delivery tool? Mm-hmm. You want to have that all thought out before you get too far down the road, because I think, as the market becomes more competitive, in particular rotator cuff, you want to make sure that the package you need doesn't include 2 or 3 versions of the product plus cannulas, tools, and fixation. So just something to think about now versus before you get too far down the road, especially when you raise money in that A round, you're going to get a lot of hard questions there.
Yeah, I agree. We've been exploring this already earlier than we should have, and we have some pathways to move forward. We already know that we can roll it into an 8mm arthroscopic device, but I kind of always want to be as agnostic as possible with the sutures and the partners, but it remains to be seen how far we go with our own development in that sense. But yeah, we're working with partners for that.
Great. Any other questions? Thanks for being the interpreter, Nick. Thanks to everyone. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Elaine. Thanks, Dr. Saykhan, for joining us. Thanks to the audience. Thanks to Nick and Aaron and Chris. Appreciate everyone's time for joining us today. Please reach out to myself or Drew if you have any additional questions, or the presenters themselves directly. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. I look forward to our next event, September 3rd, RSVP at msk-innovations.com. Thanks, everyone.